Infertile millionaire CEO throws a winter party until he sees his ex-wife arriving with 2 kids who look just like him. Before the story begins, we'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment and let us know where in the world you're watching from. Now sit back and enjoy the story. The glittering chandeliers of the Montgomery estate cast diamonds of light across the grand ballroom as Maxwell Montgomery, America's most celebrated tech innovator, surveyed his annual winter charity gala with quiet satisfaction. At 42, Maxwell had conquered Silicon Valley with his revolutionary medical technology company, Medinova, transforming from a scrappy startup founder into one of the wealthiest men in the country. "Another successful event, Mr. Montgomery," remarked his assistant, Rebecca, handing him a glass of champagne. "The donation total has already surpassed last year's by 30%. Maxwell nodded, his steel blue eyes scanning the room of investors, celebrities, and philanthropists who had paid $10,000 per plate to support his foundation's work on making advanced medical technology accessible to underprivileged communities. "That's excellent news," he replied, though his smile didn't quite reach his eyes. For all his success, the mansion in Connecticut, the penthouse in Manhattan, the private jet, the billions in his bank account, Maxwell carried a profound emptiness that no amount of wealth could fill. The doctors had confirmed it 5 years ago. He was infertile. The news had devastated his marriage to Catherine, the love of his life, who had desperately wanted children. Their divorce shortly after the diagnosis still haunted him. "Sir," Rebecca touched his arm, her voice dropping to a whisper, "I should warn you, Catherine Edwards just arrived." Maxwell froze, his glass halfway to his lips. "Catherine? Here?" She wasn't on the guest list. She was invited by Dr. Wilson from Memorial Hospital. Apparently she's been doing fundraising work for their pediatric wing But Maxwell wasn't listening anymore. His eyes had found her across the crowded ballroom. Catherine, still breathtakingly beautiful in an emerald gown that complemented her auburn hair. His heart hammered against his ribs as though trying to escape his chest. Then he noticed them. 2 small children, a boy and a girl, perhaps 5 or 6 years old, standing close to Catherine's side. Twins, with golden blonde hair, fair skin, and unmistakable steel blue eyes. Montgomery eyes. His eyes. The champagne glass slipped from Maxwell's fingers, shattering on the marble floor. Conversations nearby halted as guests turned to look. But Maxwell couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't tear his gaze away from the impossible truth standing before him. "Sir?" Rebecca's concerned voice seemed to come from miles away. "Are you all right?" Maxwell finally found his voice, though it emerged as barely a whisper. "Those children with Catherine, they look exactly like me." Maxwell gripped the edge of the marble-topped bar, struggling to steady his breathing. The children's faces had shaken him to his core. Those eyes, that nose, even the way the little boy tilted his head, all unmistakably Montgomery traits. "Are you absolutely certain about my diagnosis?" Maxwell whispered to Dr. Elliot Gardner, his personal physician who had confirmed his infertility years ago. Dr. Gardner shifted uncomfortably. "Medicine isn't always exact, Maxwell. There's a small margin for—" "A small margin?" Maxwell's voice rose sharply before he caught himself. "You told me there was no chance. 0. Technically, I said the probability was extremely low." "Doctor," Gardner clarified, his eyes darting nervously around the room. "Tests can sometimes—" Rebecca appeared at Maxwell's elbow. "Sir, Catherine is approaching." Maxwell turned to see Catherine gliding across the floor, her emerald gown catching the light. The twins stayed close to her sides, their curious eyes taking in the splendor of the ballroom. "Maxwell?" Catherine's voice was controlled but strained. "It's been a long time." 5 years, he replied, unable to tear his gaze from the children. "You didn't tell me you had children." The girl whispered something to Catherine, who bent down to whisper back. The boy stared openly at Maxwell, studying his face with peculiar intensity. "I tried to reach you," Catherine said quietly. "Many times." A waiter passed with champagne. Maxwell reached for a glass but didn't drink. "I never received any messages," he countered, confusion clouding his features. Catherine's eyes hardened slightly. Your assistant Victor assured me the messages were delivered. Victor, Maxwell's former right-hand man who had left abruptly for a position with Lawrence Blackwood, Maxwell's chief rival. A chill ran through him as pieces began to click into place. I see, he said simply, though his mind raced with implications. The little girl tugged at Catherine's gown. Mommy, is this the man from the pictures? Catherine flushed, clearly uncomfortable. Emma, please give me a moment with Mr. Montgomery. The boy continued to stare, unabashed. You have eyes like mine, he declared suddenly. Maxwell knelt to the child's level, his heart pounding. What's your name? I'm Ethan. That's Emma. We're twins, he announced proudly. We're 5.5. 5.5. Maxwell did the math quickly. Conception would have occurred right before their separation, before the infertility diagnosis. Catherine? Maxwell's voice was barely audible. We need to talk. Before she could answer, the band struck up a new song, and the crowd surged around them. Not here, Catherine warned, her eyes darting to a nearby reporter scribbling notes. Not now. The crystalline sound of a spoon tapping against glass cut through the murmur of the ballroom. Lawrence Blackwood, CEO of Blackwood Technologies and Maxwell's most formidable competitor, stood on the small stage, commanding attention. Ladies and gentlemen, Lawrence announced, his voice smooth as velvet. As we celebrate tonight's charitable achievements, let's acknowledge our host Maxwell Montgomery. Applause rippled through the crowd. Maxwell nodded stiffly, acutely aware of Catherine and the twins standing just feet away. Maxwell's medical innovations have changed countless lives. Lawrence continued with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Though I hear tonight might hold even more surprising revelations for him. A confused murmur swept through the crowd. Maxwell tensed, recognizing the subtle threat. Lawrence's gaze flickered meaningfully toward Catherine and the twins. As the speech concluded, Maxwell guided Catherine and the children to a quiet alcove away from prying eyes. Rebecca stood guard nearby, deflecting curious onlookers. How long has Lawrence known about the children? Maxwell asked, his voice low. Catherine's eyes widened. I don't discuss our children with Lawrence. Our children, Maxwell repeated, the words foreign on his tongue. Are they mine, Catherine? She met his gaze directly. Yes, Maxwell. They are yours. The confirmation, though expected, hit him like a physical blow. He steadied himself against the wall. I tried to tell you. Catherine continued. I called, emailed, even came to your office, but Victor always intercepted me. Eventually, I received legal documents from your team warning me against further contact. I never authorized any such documents, Maxwell said, shock evident in his voice. Their conversation halted as Emma wandered away from the alcove, drawn by the glittering decorations. She approached a towering ice sculpture, reaching out her small hand to touch it. Emma, careful, Catherine called. Maxwell moved faster, catching up to the little girl and gently guiding her hand away from the ice. It's very cold, he explained, kneeling to her level. It might stick to your fingers. Emma studied him with curious eyes, his eyes. Are you my daddy? She asked innocently. The question hung in the air between them, stealing Maxwell's breath. Before he could respond, a camera flash exploded nearby. Mr. Montgomery, care to comment on your relationship with these children? Called a voice Maxwell, recognized as James Carter, a notorious tabloid journalist. Catherine quickly pulled Emma back to her side while Maxwell rose to his full height, blocking Carter's view of the children. This is a private conversation at a charitable event, Maxwell stated coldly. I suggest you focus on the Foundation's work instead. Carter smirked, glancing down at his camera. I think I got what I needed. As the journalist slipped away into the crowd, Maxwell exchanged a worried glance with Catherine. The night was unraveling faster than either of them could control. Maxwell strode through the crowded ballroom, Catherine and the twins following close behind. His mind raced as he led them toward his private office at the far end of the estate. Rebecca cleared the path ahead, ensuring no one blocked their escape from the prying eyes and whispers that now followed them. "In here," Maxwell said, holding the door open to a warmly lit study. Catherine ushered the children inside, their wide eyes taking in the floor-to-ceiling bookshelves and the large desk overlooking snow-covered gardens. Once the door closed behind them, the noise of the gala faded to a distant hum. Maxwell's shoulders dropped as the tension partially released from his body. "You said you tried to contact me," he said, turning to Catherine. "When exactly?" "As soon as I found out I was pregnant," she replied, helping the twins remove their formal jackets. "About a month after our divorce was finalized." Maxwell ran a hand through his hair, pacing the length of the Persian rug. "I never received a single message." "Not one, Catherine." Ethan had wandered to Maxwell's desk examining a framed photograph. "Mommy, this is you," he exclaimed, pointing at a wedding photo Maxwell had never put away. Catherine's expression softened momentarily before she turned back to Maxwell. "Victor told me you wanted nothing to do with us. He said you were devastated about the infertility and couldn't bear the reminder." "And you believed that?" Maxwell asked, his voice rising. "After 10 years together? What was I supposed to think?" Catherine's eyes flashed. "You shut me out after the diagnosis. You buried yourself in work. The divorce was your idea, Max." Emma tugged at Catherine's gown. "Mommy, I'm thirsty." Rebecca, who had been standing quietly by the door, stepped forward. "I can take them to get some juice if that's all right." Catherine hesitated, then nodded. "Stay together, all right? Mommy will be right here talking to Mr. Montgomery." "Is he our daddy?" Emma asked bluntly, looking between the adults. The room fell silent. Maxwell felt his heart pounding in his chest as he waited for Catherine's response. "That's what we're talking about, sweetheart," Catherine finally said. "Go with Ms. Rebecca now." After Rebecca led the children out, Maxwell sank into his leather chair, feeling as though the ground beneath him had shifted permanently. "They're beautiful, Catherine," he whispered. "They look just like my mother." "I know," she replied softly. "Emma has her musical talents too. And Ethan has your mind for puzzles." Maxwell covered his face with his hands. 5 years. I've missed 5 years of their lives." A gentle knock interrupted them. Rebecca stepped back in, her expression grim. "Sir, I'm sorry, but Mr. Carter is showing those photos to guests, and Mr. Blackwood is making insinuations about your personal situation affecting company stability." Maxwell's jaw clenched. This was coordinated. Lawrence must have invited Carter himself. "What do we do?" Catherine asked, worry evident in her voice. Maxwell's eyes hardened with resolve. "We take control of the narrative before they can." A blanket of tension settled over the estate as the evening's first snowflakes began to fall outside, illuminated by the garden lights. Maxwell fixed his tie and straightened his shoulders, preparing for the confrontation that awaited in the ballroom. "I'll handle Lawrence," he told Catherine, his voice steady with newfound determination. "You stay here with the children until I send Rebecca back." Catherine caught his arm as he turned to leave. "Max, what are you going to say?" "The truth," he replied simply, "that I've just discovered I'm a father, and that someone deliberately kept that information from me." As Maxwell stepped back into the ballroom, he immediately spotted Lawrence near the bar, surrounded by investors and board members. Their hushed conversation ceased abruptly when they noticed Maxwell approaching. "Ah, there he is," Lawrence exclaimed with theatrical enthusiasm. "The man of the hour. We were just discussing the potential instability that might affect Medinova's leadership." Maxwell addressed the group calmly. "Gentlemen, I assure you that Medinova remains as stable as ever. What you've witnessed tonight is a personal matter." Lawrence's smile didn't waver. Personal matters have a way of becoming business concerns, especially when they involve undisclosed heirs to a billion-dollar company. "Is that what this is about, Lawrence?" Maxwell's eyes narrowed. "Are you trying to manipulate my stock price?" Before Lawrence could respond, the lights throughout the ballroom flickered, then dimmed substantially. A murmur of concern spread through the crowd as only the emergency lighting remained. "Ladies and gentlemen," announced the event coordinator, "the snowstorm has affected our power supply. Please remain calm while our generators stabilize." In the semi-darkness, Maxwell felt a presence at his side. It was Dr. Gardner. "I need to speak with you," the doctor whispered urgently. "About your diagnosis from 5 years ago." Maxwell followed him to a quiet corner, away from Lawrence's watchful gaze. "I've been reviewing your original test results," Dr. Gardner confessed, his face partially shadowed. "There were inconsistencies I missed, or perhaps chose not to see." "What are you saying?" Maxwell demanded. "Your samples may have been tampered with," the doctor replied, looking over his shoulder nervously. "Lawrence was on the hospital's board then. He had access." Maxwell's blood ran cold as the pieces clicked into place. "He wanted me to believe I couldn't have children. He wanted my marriage to fail." "I can't prove it," Dr. Gardner said, "but the timing makes sense. Right after you rejected his buyout offer." A crash from across the room interrupted them. In the dim light, Maxwell could make out Rebecca hurrying toward him, her face pale with worry. "Sir," she gasped, "you need to come quickly. It's Ethan. He's wandered off. Catherine is searching the east wing, but he's nowhere to be found." Maxwell's heart lurched. His son, was lost somewhere in this massive estate, while a storm raged outside and a predatory business rival circled within. "Get security," he ordered, already striding toward the exit. "And keep Lawrence away from Catherine and Emma." Maxwell's footsteps echoed through the dimly lit corridors of his estate as he hastened toward the east wing. The emergency lights cast eerie shadows across the ornate wallpaper and ancestral portraits that lined the hallway. Outside, the snowstorm intensified, pelting the windows with icy crystals that sounded like fingernails tapping on glass. "Ethan," he called, his voice reverberating through the empty spaces. "Ethan, where are you?" The mansion, normally a symbol of his success, now felt like a labyrinthine trap, hiding his newly discovered son. Maxwell checked room after room. The music room, the library, the small cinema, finding nothing but darkness and silence. His heart hammered against his ribs, each beat a painful reminder of the precious time he'd already lost with his children. Around the corner, he nearly collided with Catherine, her elegant gown sweeping the floor as she moved with similar urgency. "Any sign of him?" she asked, breathless from her own search. Maxwell shook his head. "Nothing yet. How could he have gotten so far on his own?" "He's always been curious," Catherine replied, her voice catching. "Too smart for his own good sometimes." Together, they continued searching, their shared concern momentarily bridging the 5-year chasm between them. As they approached Maxwell's private study, a room he'd intentionally kept locked, they noticed the door slightly ajar, a sliver of light spilling into the hallway. Catherine rushed forward, pushing the door open to reveal Ethan standing on a chair by Maxwell's desk, examining the wedding photograph they'd seen earlier. The boy looked up, startled by their sudden entrance, but not remotely concerned about the panic he'd caused. "You found me," he said simply, still holding the silver frame in his small hands. Relief washed over Catherine's face as she hurried to him. "Ethan James Edwards, you scared us half to death. Why did you wander off like that?" Ethan's eyes, so eerily similar to Maxwell's, shifted between the adults. "I wanted to see more pictures of you and him together." Maxwell approached slowly, careful not to startle the boy. "You should have asked first, Ethan. We were worried about you." The child looked at him directly, with a boldness that caught Maxwell off guard. "Are you my father? You have to tell the truth." The simple question, delivered with a child's unfiltered directness, hung in the air between them. Maxwell glanced at Catherine, who gave a small nod of permission. Kneeling to meet Ethan at eye level, Maxwell took a deep breath. "Yes, Ethan, I am your father." "I knew it," the boy replied matter-of-factly. "Emma said it was a secret, but I could tell from Mommy's pictures." Catherine gently took the wedding photo from Ethan's hands, placing it back on the desk. I'm sorry you found out this way. We were going to have a proper conversation about it. Does that mean we'll live here now? Ethan asked, looking around the study with undisguised interest. Before either adult could respond, a sharp knock interrupted them. Rebecca stood in the doorway, her expression tense. Mr. Montgomery, Ms. Edwards, I'm sorry to intrude, but there's a situation. Mr. Carter is showing those photos to the board members, and Mr. Blackwood is suggesting an emergency meeting to discuss the stability of leadership at Metanova. Maxwell's jaw tightened. Where's Emma? With Mrs. Patel, your housekeeper. She's safe in the kitchen having hot chocolate. Catherine moved to lift Ethan from the chair. We should join her. I don't want the children separated again. As they walked toward the door, a commotion erupted from the main hallway. Lawrence Blackwood appeared, flanked by two board members, and the journalist Carter, who immediately began snapping photos. There they are, Carter exclaimed. The happy family reunion. Lawrence's smile was razor sharp. Maxwell, the board and I were concerned when you disappeared during such an important event. Now we see why. Maxwell stepped forward, positioning himself protectively in front of Catherine and Ethan. This is a private family matter, Lawrence. It doesn't concern you or the board. Doesn't it? Lawrence countered smoothly. A secret family suddenly appearing might impact investor confidence, particularly when Metanova's latest medical trial results are due next week. One of the board members, an elderly man named Harrison Wells, looked genuinely confused. Maxwell, is it true? Are these your children? Why keep them a secret? I didn't know about them, Maxwell replied honestly, his voice firm. It appears someone deliberately kept that information from me. His gaze bore into Lawrence, whose smile faltered slightly. Carter raised his camera again. So you're confirming paternity? The infertile CEO miracle? Catherine stepped forward, her patience visibly fraying. That's enough. My children are not your headline. Lawrence raised an eyebrow. Perhaps we should discuss this more privately. The board members and I would be very interested to hear how this situation developed. Maxwell recognized the thinly veiled threat. Lawrence was offering to contain the story for a price. Most likely Metanova shares, board seats, or access to their breakthrough research. There's nothing to discuss, Maxwell stated flatly. Now, if you'll excuse us, my son has had a long evening. As if on cue, Ethan yawned dramatically, causing a ripple of uncomfortable laughter among the onlookers. Lawrence's eyes narrowed. This isn't over, Maxwell. One way or another, this revelation will affect Metanova. Is that a threat? Maxwell asked quietly, his voice dangerously low. Simply business reality, Lawrence replied, turning to leave. I'll see you at Monday's board meeting, if you're still CEO by then. As they disappeared down the hallway, Rebecca appeared with Emma in tow, the little girl clutching a mug of hot chocolate. Ethan, she exclaimed, rushing to her brother. You missed the cookies. Catherine knelt, gathering both children close. Are you two all right? Emma nodded enthusiastically, seemingly oblivious to the tension. Mrs. Patel let me help stir the chocolate. She says I have a good stirring arm. Despite everything, Maxwell couldn't help but smile at his daughter's simple joy. In that moment, watching Catherine with their children, he felt a clarity he hadn't experienced in years. We need to talk strategy, he said quietly to Catherine. Lawrence won't stop until he gets what he wants. Catherine nodded, her eyes reflecting the same determination he felt. Then we'll have to make sure he doesn't. The kitchen of the Montgomery estate hummed with quiet activity as Mrs. Patel, the housekeeper, prepared a fresh batch of hot chocolate for the twins. Emma and Ethan sat at the large island counter, their legs dangling from the high stools, occasionally whispering to each other as only twins can. Maxwell and Catherine stood by the kitchen's bay window, speaking in hushed tones while keeping the children in their line of sight. Outside, the snowstorm had intensified, blanketing the estate grounds in pristine white. The weather report on the small kitchen television warned of road closures throughout Connecticut. We're effectively trapped here tonight, Maxwell noted, watching the snow pile up against the window. No one's leaving until morning. Catherine nodded, absently twisting her emerald bracelet, a nervous habit Maxwell remembered well from their marriage. I should call my mother. She'll be worried. If she sees anything on social media before hearing from me. Use my office phone, Maxwell offered. More private than a cell call. Rebecca entered the kitchen, her tablet in hand. Sir, I've just received word that Carter has already filed a preliminary story with his editor. It's scheduled to break online within the hour. Maxwell's jaw tightened. What's the angle? Infertile billionaire's secret family revealed. Rebecca read, her expression apologetic. There's more, but it's mostly speculation and quotes from unnamed close sources. To the family. Lawrence, Catherine muttered. He's feeding them information. Maxwell ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident in the gesture. We need to get ahead of this. Rebecca, contact our PR team. I want a statement prepared immediately. What kind of statement? Catherine asked cautiously. The truth, Maxwell replied firmly. That I've just discovered I'm a father to 2 wonderful children who were kept from me through corporate sabotage. No details about the infertility misdiagnosis yet, not until we have proof of tampering. Ethan slid off his stool and approached them, his small face serious beyond his years. Are people talking about us on the internet? The adults exchanged uncomfortable glances. Maxwell knelt to the boy's level, weighing his words carefully. Some people might be, yes. But you don't need to worry about that. Is it because you're famous? Ethan asked bluntly. Mommy said you make machines that help sick people. A lump formed in Maxwell's throat. He'd missed so many conversations, so many opportunities to tell his children about his work, his life, their heritage. That's right, he managed to say. I build medical technology. And yes, sometimes that means people are interested in my personal life. Emma joined her brother, chocolate mustache adorning her upper lip. Are you going to be our daddy now? For real? Maxwell looked up at Catherine seeking permission. She gave a slight nod, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. I would like that very much, he said softly. If that's okay with you both. Emma's face broke into a wide smile, revealing a missing front tooth. I've always wanted a daddy. Before Maxwell could respond, his phone rang. The caller ID displayed Harrison Wells, board chairman. I need to take this, he said, rising to his feet. It's about the company. Catherine gathered the children closer as Maxwell stepped away to answer. The call, his future, their future, hung in the balance of what happened next. Maxwell paced the length of his home office, phone pressed to his ear as Harrison Wells, the board chairman, explained the emergency board meeting Lawrence had called for Monday. Morning? They're claiming urgent leadership concerns, Maxwell. Harrison's voice crackled over the line. Lawrence has secured proxy votes from Daniels and Rivera already. That's still not enough for a no-confidence vote, Maxwell countered, stopping to gaze out at the blizzard. What's his real angle here? Harrison hesitated. He's suggesting you deliberately concealed your paternity to avoid legal obligations. Claims it shows a pattern of deception that could impact investor confidence. Maxwell's free hand clenched into a fist. That's rich coming from the man who likely orchestrated the entire situation. Do you have proof of that? Not yet, but I will by Monday. After ending the call, Maxwell returned to the kitchen where Catherine was helping the twins build a tower of sugar cubes while Mrs. Patel prepared a late dinner. The scene of domestic tranquility struck him powerfully. This was what he'd missed for 5 years. The roads are completely closed, Rebecca announced, entering with her tablet. The governor's declared a state of emergency. No one's leaving until tomorrow at the earliest. Catherine looked up, concern etching her features. What about the guests? Most live nearby and left when the weather advisory first came through, Rebecca explained. The rest are being accommodated in the guest wing. Maxwell nodded. And Lawrence? Still here. He's taken the blue suite on the 2nd floor. Emma looked up from her sugar cube castle. Who's Lawrence? Just a business associate, Maxwell replied smoothly, not wanting to burden the children with adult concerns. Ethan, ever perceptive, frowned. He doesn't seem very nice. He was looking at us funny during the party. Rebecca's phone pinged with an alert. Her expression darkened as she checked the screen. Sir, Carter's story just went live. It's not good. Maxwell took the tablet, Catherine moving to read over his shoulder. The headline screamed in bold type. Miracle or deception? Tech billionaire's infertile claim debunked by twin heirs. The article implied Maxwell had known about the children but kept them hidden to avoid financial obligations and maintain his charitable image. It quoted sources close to the family, claiming Catherine had been silenced with hush money. That's absurd, Catherine whispered, her face pale. I would never. Lawrence, Maxwell growled, setting the tablet down before the children could see it. He's feeding them these lies. A soft knock at the kitchen door interrupted them. Dr. Gardner entered, looking haggard and nervous. I've been reviewing my notes from 5 years ago, he said without preamble. There were irregularities in the handling of your samples. The lab technician who processed them was hired by Blackwood Industries just weeks later. Maxwell and Catherine exchanged meaningful glances. If we can prove tampering, Catherine began, then we have leverage, Maxwell finished. Emma tugged at Maxwell's sleeve. Daddy, can we have a story before bed? The word daddy sent a jolt through Maxwell's heart. Despite the crisis swirling around them, he found himself smiling. Of course, sweetheart. Let's get you two settled first. The grandfather clock in the hallway chimed midnight as Maxwell led the twins to the guest bedroom adjacent to his master suite. Catherine followed closely behind, carrying a small overnight bag Rebecca had assembled with borrowed pajamas and toiletries. The storm howled outside, rattling the windows and sending occasional flurries of snow against the glass. This room has 2 beds, Maxwell explained, switching on the lamps that cast a warm golden glow across the space. I had it prepared for visiting family, but his voice trailed off as he realized the irony of his words. Family. He had family now. Emma bounced onto one of the twin beds, testing its springiness with obvious delight. It's so squishy. Ethan was more reserved, carefully examining the bookshelf in the corner. Do you have any space books? I like planets. Maxwell smiled. I think there might be an astronomy book. We'll check in the morning. He hesitated, then added, I have a whole library downstairs with many more books. Catherine disappeared into the adjoining bathroom to help the children prepare for bed. Maxwell could hear their muffled voices, the running water, Emma's giggle as she likely splashed her brother. He stood in the middle of the room, feeling both like an intruder and like he had finally come home. When Catherine emerged with the children in their borrowed pajamas, Maxwell asked, Would you like that story now? The twins climbed into their respective beds, eyes wide with anticipation. Maxwell sat on the edge of Emma's bed, while Catherine perched beside Ethan. For a moment, they looked like any ordinary family at bedtime, as if the years of separation had never happened. Maxwell began a story about a lonely astronaut who discovered a small planet with 2 young explorers who taught him about courage and joy. The children listened raptly, occasionally interrupting with questions that made both adults smile. As the story concluded, Emma's eyelids grew heavy, while Ethan fought to stay awake. We'll talk more tomorrow, Catherine whispered, kissing each child goodnight. Maxwell, following her lead, did the same, the simple act filling him with unexpected emotion. They left the room quietly, leaving the door slightly ajar. In the hallway, they stood in awkward silence until Maxwell gestured toward his study. We should talk strategy, he said quietly. Lawrence won't waste any time. In the study, a fire crackled in the hearth, providing both warmth and soft illumination. Catherine sank into one of the leather armchairs, suddenly looking exhausted. I can't believe this is happening, she murmured. After all these years of protecting them, raising them alone, now everything's exposed. Maxwell poured 2 glasses of brandy, handing one to Catherine. I need to know everything, he said, sitting across from her. Every attempt you made to contact me, every interaction with Victor or anyone from my company. Catherine took a small sip before speaking. After we separated, I discovered I was pregnant about 6 weeks later. I called your office repeatedly, but Victor always intercepted. He told me you were devastated by the infertility diagnosis, and that hearing about my pregnancy would destroy you. And you believed him? Maxwell couldn't keep the hurt from his voice. You were so withdrawn after the diagnosis, Max, you pushed me away, filed for divorce. What was I supposed to think? She looked down at her glass. Eventually, I received cease and desist letters from your legal team, threatening a harassment suit if I continued trying to contact you. Maxwell's grip tightened on his glass. I never authorized any such letters. I know that now, Catherine replied softly. But at the time I was alone, pregnant with twins and terrified. I decided to focus on giving our children the best life I could. Why come tonight? After all this time? Catherine met his gaze directly. The children are asking questions about their father. Emma found our wedding photo in my drawer. I thought it was time they knew the truth, even if it was painful. A knock interrupted them. Rebecca entered, her expression grim. Sir, I've been digging through old email archives. I found something disturbing. She placed her tablet on the desk between them. These are communications between Victor and Lawrence, dating back 5 years. They discuss your medical results explicitly. Maxwell scrolled through the emails, his anger building with each message. There it was in black and white. Lawrence had paid Victor to falsify the infertility diagnosis and intercept Catherine's messages. There's more, Rebecca continued. Dr. Gardner provided access to your original test results. They were deliberately misinterpreted. According to the medical expert I consulted, you never had fertility issues. Catherine's hand flew to her mouth. All this time. Maxwell stood abruptly, pacing before the fire. This is corporate sabotage at its worst. He used our personal lives, our marriage, our children as pawns in his business game. The question is, what do we do now? Catherine asked. We fight back, Maxwell replied without hesitation. With these emails, we have leverage. We can threaten to expose Lawrence's corporate espionage unless he backs down from both the board challenge and his media campaign. Rebecca cleared her throat. There's one more thing. Carter is requesting an exclusive interview with both of you tomorrow morning. He's claiming if you don't agree, he'll run a follow-up piece with additional sources that will be even more damaging. Maxwell and Catherine exchanged glances. The journalist who had been weaponized against them might now become their best chance to control the narrative. Tell him we'll consider it, Maxwell said after a moment. But make it clear that any further defamatory statements will result in immediate legal action. As Rebecca left to deliver the message, Maxwell returned to his seat across from Catherine. The fire crackled in the silence between them, shadows dancing across the walls like the complicated emotions flickering across their faces. I've missed so much, Maxwell finally said, his voice hoarse with emotion. First steps, first words, birthdays. Catherine reached across the space between them, taking his hand. They're only 5, Max. There's still so much ahead. School plays, sports games, science fairs, graduations. You haven't lost everything. Maxwell's fingers tightened around hers. I want to be part of their lives, Catherine. I want to be their father in every sense of the word. And Lawrence, she asked softly. The scandal, your company? None of that matters compared to them, he answered without hesitation. I built Medinova from nothing once. I could do it again if necessary, but I can't get back these years with Emma and Ethan. Outside, the storm howled with diminishing fury as the night deepened. Inside, in the warm glow of the fire, 2 people who had once loved each other deeply began the tentative process of rebuilding what had been so calculatingly destroyed. The first pale rays of morning light filtered through the study windows as Maxwell reviewed the documents Rebecca had assembled throughout the night. The snowstorm had finally abated, leaving the estate grounds transformed into a glistening white landscape. Although the roads remained largely impassable, the weather report predicted clearing by afternoon. These are solid, Maxwell said, organizing the evidence into a leather portfolio. Lawrence's emails to Victor, the falsified medical reports, the intercepted messages from Catherine. It's all here. Rebecca nodded, suppressing a yawn. She had worked tirelessly, reaching out to former employees and digging through archived files to build their case. The board members should find it compelling, especially since 3 of them were targeted by similar tactics in the past. A soft knock at the door interrupted them. Catherine entered, already dressed in clothes borrowed from Rebecca's wardrobe, simple black slacks and a burgundy sweater that complemented her auburn hair. "The twins are still asleep," she said, accepting the coffee Maxwell offered. "What time is Carter arriving for the interview?" 10 o'clock, Rebecca replied. "I've set conditions. No ambush questions, no photographs of the children, and we review the piece before publication." Maxwell's phone rang. Harrison Wells again, he answered on speaker. "Maxwell, Lawrence is making his move earlier than expected." Harrison's voice crackled. "He's called for an emergency virtual board meeting at noon today, citing urgent governance concerns requiring immediate attention." Maxwell exchanged glances with Catherine. "He's trying to force a vote before we can present our evidence." "Precisely," Harrison confirmed. "I've delayed as much as possible, but he's secured enough support to proceed. You need to be prepared." After ending the call, Maxwell turned to Catherine, determination etched on his face. "We need to change our approach. Instead of defending, we attack. Carter's interview is our platform." Catherine's eyes widened. "You want to publicly expose Lawrence?" "It's our best option," Maxwell replied, running a hand through his disheveled hair. "We reveal the evidence during the interview, then present it formally at the board meeting." At that moment, Ethan appeared in the doorway, hair tousled, from sleep, clutching his borrowed pajamas. "Is there breakfast?" he asked matter-of-factly. "Emma's hungry too." Maxwell smiled despite the tension. "Of course. Let's find Mrs. Patel and see what she can prepare." In the kitchen, as the twins devoured blueberry pancakes, Maxwell received word that Lawrence was requesting a private meeting before Carter's interview. "He knows we have something," Catherine whispered, watching the children from across the kitchen. "He's trying to negotiate." Maxwell nodded grimly. "Let him come. It's time he faced the consequences of his actions." 20 minutes later, Lawrence entered Maxwell's study, his usual polished demeanor slightly frayed around the edges. The night had clearly been as sleepless for him as it had been for them. "Maxwell," he began smoothly, declining the offered seat. "I think we've gotten off on the wrong foot. This situation could benefit us both if handled correctly." Maxwell remained standing, arms crossed. "I'm listening," Lawrence smiled thinly. "Simple. You step down as CEO, citing family reasons. I assume leadership temporarily. The board assigns you a generous chairman emeritus position. Your reputation remains intact and your new family avoids unnecessary scrutiny." Maxwell's expression hardened. "And if I refuse?" Lawrence's facade of friendliness disappeared. "Then I make sure every tabloid in the country portrays you as a deadbeat father who abandoned his responsibilities. The board loses confidence and Medinova's stock plummets just before the cancer trial results are announced." Maxwell stepped forward, his voice dangerously quiet. "You underestimate me, Lawrence. Always have." The tension in the study was palpable as Maxwell and Lawrence faced off. Maxwell reached for the leather portfolio on his desk and extracted several printed emails. "Before you continue with your threats, Lawrence, you should know that we have evidence of your corporate espionage." He handed the documents to Lawrence, whose eyes narrowed as he scanned their contents. "Falsifying medical records, bribing my personal assistant, intercepting private communications between me and my ex-wife. That's not just unethical, it's illegal." Lawrence's confident facade cracked slightly, but he recovered quickly. "These could be fabricated. Your word against mine." "Not quite," Maxwell replied calmly. "Victor has agreed to testify in exchange for immunity, and Dr. Gardner has provided a sworn statement about the tampering with my medical tests." Lawrence tossed the papers onto the desk. "Is this blackmail, Maxwell? You'll stay quiet about my alleged misconduct if I back off?" "No," Maxwell stated firmly. "This is accountability. You manipulated my life, destroyed my marriage, and separated me from my children for 5 years. There's no deal to be made here." Lawrence's expression hardened. "You're making a mistake. I still have board support." "For now," Maxwell acknowledged, "but in 30 minutes Carter will be interviewing Catherine and me. We'll be sharing these documents with him. I imagine the board will find it difficult to support you once this becomes public. A flash of genuine fear crossed Lawrence's face. You're bluffing. Going public would hurt Medinova. Perhaps in the short term, Maxwell conceded. But the company will recover. Can you say the same about your reputation? The door opened and Rebecca appeared. Mr. Montgomery, Mr. Carter has arrived early. He's waiting in the parlor. Lawrence's jaw tightened. This isn't over. Actually, it is, Maxwell replied. You have two choices. Resign from the board immediately and cease all hostile actions, or face the consequences of a public expose and potential criminal charges. After Lawrence stormed out, Catherine entered, concern evident in her expression. What happened? He's cornered and he knows it, Maxwell replied, gathering the documents. Where are the twins? With Mrs. Patel making snow angels in the courtyard, Catherine said with a small smile. They're having the time of their lives. Maxwell moved to the window, watching his children playing in the snow, their laughter faintly audible through the glass. Emma was attempting to create a perfect angel shape, while Ethan appeared to be constructing a miniature snow fortress nearby. They deserve better than to have their lives become tabloid fodder, he said quietly. Catherine joined him at the window. What are you thinking? Maxwell turned to face her. I'm thinking we change the interview approach. Instead of exposing Lawrence, we focus on our family story. The corporate sabotage becomes a footnote rather than the headline. A positive narrative instead of a vengeful one, Catherine nodded. But what about Lawrence and the board meeting? I'll handle that separately, Maxwell replied. Harrison has enough influence to help me weather this storm, and once Lawrence realizes we're not publicly crucifying him, he might take the quieter exit we've offered. Rebecca appeared at the door again. Mr. Carter is getting impatient, and the board meeting has been moved up to 11:30. Maxwell straightened his tie, a new resolve evident in his posture. Let's go tell our story, the real story. The parlor of the Montgomery estate provided an elegant backdrop for the interview. Carter sat across from Maxwell and Catherine, digital recorder placed between them. His initial smugness replaced by genuine journalistic interest as the story unfolded. So to clarify, Carter said, you're stating that you only discovered you were the father of these children yesterday evening at your own charity gala. Maxwell nodded, his composure steady despite the emotionally charged topic. That's correct. For 5 years I believed I was infertile due to a medical diagnosis that, as we now know, was deliberately manipulated. And you, Ms. Edwards, Carter, turned to Catherine. You attempted to inform Mr. Montgomery about the pregnancy? Multiple times, Catherine confirmed. I made calls, sent emails, even visited his office in person. Each time I was intercepted by his then assistant, who assured me Maxwell wanted nothing to do with me or the children. Carter's eyebrows rose. That's quite an elaborate deception. Do you have evidence to support these claims? Maxwell exchanged glances with Catherine before sliding a thin folder across the table. We do. What you'll find there proves corporate sabotage at the highest level. However, he raised a hand as Carter eagerly reached for the documents. We're providing this for background context only. Our focus today isn't retribution. It's not? Carter seemed genuinely surprised. No, Maxwell replied firmly. It's reunification, learning. I'm a father to 2 extraordinary children is the greatest gift I could have received. I've lost 5 years with them. I won't lose another day to corporate politics or scandal. Catherine reached across the space between them, taking Maxwell's hand in a gesture that wasn't planned but felt entirely natural. We want to move forward, as a family. The twins deserve that chance. Carter studied them, his reporter's instinct sensing the authenticity of their words. And what about Medinova? Your company's stock will likely react to this news. Medinova's mission has always been improving lives through medical technology, Maxwell replied. That mission remains unchanged. If anything, becoming a father has strengthened my commitment to creating a healthier world for all children. As the interview continued, sounds of childish laughter filtered through the parlor windows. Emma and Ethan were building a snowman in the courtyard, supervised by Mrs. Patel, blissfully unaware of the interview that would reshape their public narrative. Carter followed Maxwell's gaze to the window. "Would you introduce me to your children after we conclude?" "No photographs," Catherine stipulated firmly. "Agreed," Carter nodded, switching off his recorder. "I think I have everything I need. This is quite different from the story I expected to write." "Truth often is," Maxwell replied, rising from his seat. After Carter departed, Rebecca hurried in with an update. "The board meeting starts in 15 minutes. We'll conduct it via video conference from your home office." Maxwell turned to Catherine. "Will you be there with me?" She hesitated only briefly before nodding. The twins are happily occupied with their snowman. Mrs. Patel will watch them. In the office, Maxwell positioned his chair so that Catherine could stand just off camera, present but invisible to the board members. As the video conference connected, revealing a virtual gallery of serious faces, Maxwell felt a surprising calm. The evidence lay organized before him, but he hoped he wouldn't need it. "Gentlemen, ladies," he began, "I understand there are concerns about recent developments in my personal life. Let me address them directly." The boardroom faces on Maxwell's screen ranged from skeptical to openly hostile as he addressed them. Lawrence sat at the center of the virtual gallery, a practiced look of concern on his features. "As you're all aware," Maxwell began, "last night I discovered I'm the father of twins. This news was as surprising to me as it is to you. For 5 years I believed I was infertile due to medical tests that I now know were deliberately falsified." Murmurs rippled through the virtual assembly. Lawrence cleared his throat. "Maxwell, while we sympathize with your personal situation, the board is concerned about the impact on shareholder confidence. Perhaps a temporary leadership transition would—" "Let me stop you there, Lawrence," Maxwell interrupted, his voice steady. "What impacts shareholder confidence isn't my newly discovered family, but rather corporate espionage that targeted me personally." Maxwell shared his screen, displaying the first email exchange between Lawrence and Victor. The virtual room fell silent as board members leaned closer to their screens, reading the damning evidence. "There are dozens more documents like this," Maxwell continued. "They prove that Lawrence orchestrated the falsification of my medical records and blocked all communication from my ex-wife regarding her pregnancy. These actions were designed to destabilize me emotionally and professionally." Harrison Wells, the board chairman, removed his glasses slowly. "These are serious allegations." "Maxwell, Lawrence, do you have a response?" Lawrence's composed facade began to crack. "This is clearly a fabrication designed to distract from the real issue. We have signed affidavits from Dr. Gardner and Victor Rhodes confirming these events," Maxwell countered, displaying both documents on screen. "And the district attorney's office has expressed significant interest in pursuing corporate espionage charges." A female board member spoke up. "If these allegations are true, it's Lawrence who should be concerned about his position, not Maxwell." Lawrence's face had paled considerably. "This is absurd. I demand time to prepare a proper response." "By all means," Maxwell replied evenly. "Though I should mention that Mr. Carter will be publishing an article tomorrow that includes portions of this evidence. I'd suggest preparing your response quickly." After several tense minutes of discussion, Harrison called for a brief recess. When the meeting reconvened 15 minutes later, Lawrence was notably absent. "Lawrence has submitted his immediate resignation from the board," Harrison announced. He cited personal reasons and a desire to focus on other ventures. Relief washed over Maxwell as he felt Catherine's hand squeeze his shoulder off camera. The remaining board members quickly affirmed their confidence in his leadership, with several expressing personal congratulations on his newfound family. As the video conference ended, Maxwell turned to Catherine, who was smiling tearfully. "It's over," she whispered. "Actually, over." Maxwell shook his head. "Not over," he corrected gently. "Just beginning." They found the twins in the kitchen with Mrs. Patel, their cheeks still rosy from the cold, enjoying hot chocolate after their snow adventures. "Daddy!" Emma called out when she saw Maxwell, the word still new and wonderful to his ears. We made a snow family outside. Come see? Maxwell knelt beside them. I'd love to see your snow family. But first I have something important to tell you both. The twins looked at him with curious eyes as Catherine joined them at the table. You know how I only just found out I'm your daddy? He began carefully. Well, some bad people tried to keep us apart, but they can't do that anymore. So now, if it's okay with you, I'd like us to be a real family. The Montgomery estate felt transformed, not by the glittering snow outside, but by the warm presence of family within. In the grand living room, a fire crackled merrily as Emma and Ethan sat cross-legged on the plush carpet, absorbed in a complex puzzle Maxwell had found in the game cabinet. This piece goes here, Ethan declared, confidently placing a section of what appeared to be a rocket ship. No, it doesn't, Emma countered, immediately rearranging it. See? The colors don't match. Maxwell watched from the sofa, a steaming mug of coffee warming his hands. Catherine sat beside him, close enough that their shoulders touched, a comfortable proximity that felt both new and familiar. They're so much like us, he murmured, noting how Ethan approached the puzzle methodically while Emma worked by intuition. Emma has your artistic eye, and Ethan has your stubborn determination, Catherine finished with a soft laugh. He spent 3 hours building a Lego spaceship last month because the instructions said it would take 4. Outside, the sun broke through the clouds, casting diamond-like sparkles across the snow. The roads had finally been cleared, and Rebecca had informed them that the press had begun to gather at the estate gates, eager for the first photos of the newly united family. Carter's article went live an hour ago, Catherine said, checking her phone. It's surprisingly kind. Maxwell leaned closer to read the headline. Reunited, Tech CEO discovers family after years of deception. The article detailed their story with a compassionate tone, focusing on the reunion rather than the scandal. Lawrence was mentioned only briefly as a board member who has since resigned amid allegations of corporate misconduct. The board has been calling non-stop, Maxwell said. They're concerned about the shareholder meeting next week, but the stock has actually risen 2 points since the article broke. Why do you think that is? Catherine asked. Maxwell smiled, watching as Emma triumphantly placed the final puzzle piece. People respond to authenticity, and perhaps they appreciate that Medinova's CEO values family as much as innovation. Rebecca appeared in the doorway, tablet in hand. Sir, I've arranged everything as you requested. The press conference is scheduled for tomorrow morning, and the documents for the Montgomery Family Foundation have been drafted. Thank you, Rebecca, Maxwell replied. And the other matter? Rebecca smiled. The realtor will show Ms. Edwards and the children the house on Maple Street this afternoon if they're interested. Catherine looked at Maxwell questioningly. House on Maple Street? It's 3 blocks from here, Maxwell explained. I thought. Well, I know we have a lot to figure out, but I wanted you and the children nearby. The house has a beautiful garden. Plenty of room and, Max, Catherine interrupted gently. That's very thoughtful, but we need to take this slowly. For the children's sake. Maxwell nodded, feeling chastened but understanding her caution. Of course, you're right. Emma looked up from the completed puzzle. Can we go sledding now? Mrs. Patel said there's a big hill behind the house. I found a sled in the garage, Ethan added eagerly. It's red and super fast. Maxwell glanced at Catherine, who nodded with a smile. First, let's find proper snow clothes for everyone, he said, rising from the sofa. As they prepared for their sledding adventure, Maxwell received a text from Harrison. Lawrence has left the country, heading to his villa in Switzerland. Board unanimously supports you. Congratulations on your family. Maxwell pocketed his phone, feeling a weight lift from his shoulders. The corporate battle was over, but the more important journey, becoming a father to his children and perhaps rebuilding something with Catherine, was just beginning. Outside, the winter air was crisp and invigorating. Maxwell pulled the sled up the hill, the twins running ahead in their borrowed snow gear, their laughter echoing across the pristine landscape. Catherine walked beside him, her breath forming small clouds in the cold air. I never thought we'd be here, she admitted, quietly. After everything. Maxwell paused, turning to face her. I've been thinking about what you said, about taking things slowly. You're right. But I want you to know that whatever happens between us, I'm committed to being the best father I can be to Emma and Ethan. Catherine's eyes softened. I know. That, Max. I've always known what kind of man you truly are. It's why I came to the gala in the first place, because our children deserve to know their father. At the top of the hill, the twins were already arguing about who would go first on the sled. Maxwell intervened with a solution. How about we all go together? This sled is big enough. 4 sets of eyes widened with excitement as they positioned themselves on the sled, Maxwell at the back, Catherine in front of him, and the twins secured between them. With a gentle push, they began their descent, the sled picking up speed as it glided over the perfect snow. Emma and Ethan squealed with delight, while Catherine leaned back against Maxwell's chest, her laughter joining the children's. In that moment, racing down the hill with his family in his arms, Maxwell felt a joy more profound than any business success had ever brought him. The day of the press conference dawned bright and clear, sunlight glinting off the snow-covered grounds of the Montgomery estate. In the master bedroom, Maxwell adjusted his tie before the mirror, his thoughts turning to the journey that had brought him to this moment. Just 48 hours ago, he had been a solitary figure, a successful CEO with an empire built on medical innovation, but an empty personal life. Now everything had changed. A soft knock at the door interrupted his reflection. Catherine entered, elegant in a navy blue dress, her auburn hair swept into a simple updo. The children are ready, she said. Mrs. Patel helped them with their outfits. Maxwell smiled. Are they nervous? Surprisingly, no. Emma is excited about being on television, and Ethan keeps asking if there will be real reporters like in the movies. Catherine paused, studying his face. How about you? Nervous? A little, he admitted. Not about the press, I've handled them for years. But this feels different, more important. Catherine stepped closer, straightening his already perfect tie. It is more important. This isn't about stock prices or medical breakthroughs. It's about family. Downstairs, Rebecca had transformed the estate's grand entrance hall into an impromptu press area. A podium stood before a tasteful backdrop featuring the Medinova logo alongside the newly designed Montgomery Family Foundation emblem. Journalists and cameras filled the space, their murmured conversations creating a steady hum of anticipation. Emma and Ethan waited in the library, a safe distance from the press gathering. Emma twirled in her blue dress, while Ethan fidgeted with the collar of his small button-down shirt. Will I have to talk? Ethan asked when Maxwell entered. Maxwell knelt before his son. Only if you want to. Today is just about introducing you to the world, but you don't have to say a word if you don't feel like it. Emma stepped forward, her expression serious. I'll talk. I practiced with Mrs. Patel. Maxwell felt his heart swell with pride and gratitude. What did you practice saying? That I'm happy to meet my daddy and that we're going to be a family now, she replied with the straightforward honesty only a child can deliver. Tears pricked at Maxwell's eyes as he gathered both children into a gentle embrace. Catherine watched, from the doorway, her own eyes glistening. It's time, Rebecca announced softly from behind Catherine. Maxwell rose, taking a deep breath. Ready? He asked, offering one hand to each twin. Emma nodded eagerly, while Ethan gave a more hesitant but determined nod. Together, the three of them walked toward Catherine, who joined their small procession as they headed for the entrance hall. The flashes of cameras began the moment they appeared. Maxwell felt Emma's hand tighten in his, while Ethan pressed closer, to his side. Catherine moved protectively to stand beside the children as Maxwell approached the podium. Good morning, he began, his voice steady and clear. Thank you all for coming. As you know, 2 days ago, my life changed forever when I discovered I am the father of 2 remarkable children. He gestured toward Emma and Ethan, who stood with Catherine a few steps away. Due to circumstances beyond my control, circumstances that are now being investigated by the appropriate authorities, I was unaware of their existence until my annual winter charity gala. The reporters listened with rapt attention, cameras clicking continuously. I won't be taking questions about the ongoing investigation, Maxwell continued, but I do want to share some news. Today I'm announcing the creation of the Montgomery Family Foundation, dedicated to reuniting separated families and supporting children in need across the country. A ripple of approval moved through the crowd as Maxwell outlined the foundation's mission, providing legal aid to parents separated from their children through deception or coercion, funding research into fertility treatments, and establishing educational scholarships for children of single parents. On a personal note, Maxwell added, his voice softening, I want to thank Catherine Edwards, the mother of my children, for her strength, courage, and extraordinary parenting. Despite the obstacles placed in our path, she raised Emma and Ethan to be the incredible children they are today. Catherine blinked back tears as Maxwell beckoned her and the twins forward to join him at the podium. Any questions? Maxwell asked the assembled press. Will you be seeking custody of the children? Called out a reporter from the front row. Maxwell looked to Catherine before answering. Catherine and I are committed to co-parenting. The details are private, but our priority is the well-being of our children. Ms. Edwards, how do you feel about Mr. Montgomery's sudden appearance in your children's lives? Asked another journalist. Catherine leaned toward the microphone. I always hoped this day would come. Max, Mr. Montgomery, has already shown himself to be the father I always knew he could be. Emma, apparently deciding it was her turn, stepped forward and stood on tiptoe to reach the microphone. I always wanted a daddy, she announced to the crowd, her voice clear and confident despite its childish pitch. And now I have the best one. A collective awe rose from the press corps, followed by appreciative laughter and applause. Ethan, not to be outdone, whispered something to Maxwell, who lifted him up to reach the microphone. My daddy's going to help me build a rocket ship, Ethan declared solemnly. Maxwell grinned. That's right, buddy, sky's the limit. After a few more questions, Rebecca signaled that the press conference was concluding. As the journalists began to disperse, Maxwell gathered his family close, whispering, You were all amazing. Later that afternoon, as the winter sun began its early descent, Maxwell stood in the doorway of the estate's sunroom, watching Catherine read a story to the twins. The past few days had been a whirlwind of emotions and revelations, legal meetings and corporate decisions. But this quiet moment, his children safe and happy, Catherine's gentle voice bringing a story to life, felt like the true resolution. Catherine looked up, catching his eye over the children's heads. Her smile held both warmth and a question. What came next for them? Maxwell didn't have all the answers yet, but for the first time in 5 years he felt genuine hope for the future. As if sensing his thoughts, Emma twisted in her seat to look at him. Daddy, come listen to the story too. Maxwell crossed the room and settled beside them on the sofa, completing their small circle. Outside, the snow began to fall again, soft flakes drifting past the windows like tiny messengers of new beginnings. Once upon a time, Catherine continued reading, a family that had been separated by a storm found their way back to each other. Maxwell closed his eyes briefly, savoring the words and the warmth of his children pressed against him. Whatever challenges lay ahead, and there would surely be many, he knew with absolute certainty that discovering his family was the greatest fortune he would ever possess.